Oh man, we got some injury news to talk about. We've got two bad teams going up against each other, and two of their best players are out. So what do we want to do here? We're going to talk about that here in a second. Thanks for joining us, guys. This is The Edge DFS. My name is Tyson Smith, joined by Ellie Hernandez. Ellie, what's going on with you, man? And how did you do for Monday Night Football?
Did not do great on Monday night, man. I guess I'm doing fine. You asked me how I was doing. I'm just straight to the gambling here, man. But no, it was fine. I was hoping the Rams were going to show up and play some ball, but didn't work out. So, live to fight another day.
Yeah, man, I had a lot of Stafford, and that really killed me. This is the optimal lineup here. Cooper Kupp at captain, of course. Robbie Gould, 49ers defense, Jeff Wilson, Deebo Samuel, and Tyler Higbee. So these are kind of the lineups that we were kind of building. Now, I didn't expect that, 49ers touchdown near the end there. But besides the whole Cooper Kupp at captain thing, I still think you could have cashed without him at captain, as long as you had the right lineup construction. But this was just a bad game. I mean, the 49ers dominated. It hit the under, kind of like what we were talking about. Tevin Coleman and Marlon Mack and those other guys, they didn't see any snaps. Basically, going forward, note to self, San Francisco backup running backs do not exist. It's Deebo Samuel or whoever's number one. Note to self. because I think Tevin Coleman got 1 third down in the third quarter, and that was it. That's the only snap he played, I think. Anyways, what are your thoughts on this lineup before we move over to Thursday Night Football?
Yeah, I mean, it's fine. I guess if you're playing and, you got a couple entries and you end up hitting this and you dupe with a bunch of people, you're still profiting a little bit. If you're doing MME, though, I want to get a little bit different. This looks pretty chalky build, man.
Yeah, I mean, I don't remember what the winner took home. It was probably decent. It was split for sure. But nobody took $1 million home. Nobody took hundreds of thousands home with this. But I would still take it at the end of the day at this point.
Yeah, for sure.
All right, well, let's get into our current matchup here. Indy traveling to Denver. Denver's 3.5-point favorites with a low total 42. That line moved. Now that Jonathan Taylor is out, which, by the way, if you don't know that, now you know. Javonte Williams is out, which we'll talk about more in a second. But without these guys, without Taylor, the line moved a little bit. So what were you seeing today after that news came out?
Honestly, I didn't see as much movement as I thought I was going to see. I would think that this should put Denver in prime position to win this game because Jonathan Taylor's by far the best offensive player on the Colts. But I don't know, man. Denver's playing like they're a week 2 preseason team, so who knows? I think Vegas is usually pretty sharp on these shitty teams, so I'm going to kind of trust the numbers here. I think we're easily going to see an under and probably a game that comes down to a field goal or a missed field goal, like the Colts tied this season and lost a game like that. So who knows?
Both of these teams are underachieving like crazy. You've got Indy potentially here. Let's look at this. Let's look at this tweet here. Colts owner Jim Irsay has grown impatient with GM Chris Ballard and head coach Frank Wright, per source, and both of them are on the hot seat. If there's not a major turnaround with the team soon, both will be gone. That same applies to Matt Ryan. So you're in the Indy area, man. What are you hearing locally? People can't be too happy because I thought that they'd make a major upgrade. I thought they were going to be a playoff team this year.
Yeah, I think maybe a little bit of this is some hyperbole, right? This could be also an angry fan. It is something I found, but we'll look for more sources and stuff like this. But Jim Irsay is growing impatient. I do hear rumblings out here. The fan base, though, like, dude, it's on the radio all day long.
Yeah,
just talking about how the Colts are underachieving. So, I mean, Frank Reich, he's had a different quarterback every year for the past 4 years. Chris Ballard hasn't really done much to help them out, I don't think. And you have all this money invested in an offensive line that's not doing anything. So, their jobs actually could be on the line here. I think they need to win this game, man.
We're still dealing with the residual effects of Andrew Luck retiring at this point, which is tough, man. Yeah. It's tough. All right, well, let's get into the injuries here. So, obviously, So Russell Wilson has a shoulder injury. He's not even on the injury report. Melvin Gordon as well with the neck injury. They're going to play. Melvin Gordon will be the guy. And obviously on the other side of things, we've got Jonathan Taylor out. So what do we do here, man? Like, what are your thoughts? We've got a lot to deal with here when it comes to injuries. I really do think there's a lot at play here. So what do we do?
Yeah, I mean, I think we're gonna have to be real specific here on what we want our game scripts to be. I don't think salary is gonna be much of an issue. Hines is already probably low priced for what should have been an increased role in a short week when it hurt Jonathan Taylor. So I don't know, man. I think we need to get into building and see what works best.
Yeah, I mean, we're gonna talk about the running backs here in a second, but hey, let's get right into this breakdown, man. Break it down. All right, so we've got Russell Wilson at 10.4K, Matt Ryan at 9,600. I don't even know where to start here, man. The quarterback conundrum on these showdowns has been interesting. The last time we saw no quarterbacks in the opto, they both underachieved. Is that a situation for this particular slate? Russell Wilson's projected quite a bit higher than Matt Ryan. Can we see a Matt Ryan comeback game here? I don't know what to expect, especially with no running attack basically in this game.
Yeah, man. I absolutely think both these quarterbacks are capable of giving us a lights out performance tomorrow night. Unfortunately, I just don't think it's going to happen. Russell Wilson hasn't been on the same page with his team. They're getting some of the most egregious time management penalties I think I've ever seen. This is coming from Cardinals fans, right?
Bro,
like,
yeah.
I was throwing stuff at the TV, man.
The
like
fans
Nathaniel
are counting
Hackett
down.
needs to go back and play Madden, bro. Like you've never played Madden. Like, anyways, it's not good, and I don't think they're going to be able to fix a lot of that on a short week.
Well, dude, not to interrupt you, man, but we talked about the Colts side of things being on the hot seat. Hackett, man, this guy could get fired after his first couple games. We're talking about a guy who's a good coordinator. His offense has been good, but not for this team, and I think he's overwhelmed. Maybe you got to give this guy a full year. We're talking about a first-time head coach that, man, I don't know, man. That does not look good. When your home crowd is chanting out the play clock because you've got so many false starts, that is a bad sign, man. Both of these teams are do or die for this game, man. It really is, and both quarterbacks almost too. So I don't know, man. This could be a narrative thing too that we could talk about. But 10.4K for Russell Wilson, 9,600 for Matt Ryan. I don't think I'm going to have any double quarterback stacks. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, no double quarterback stacks. I like running 4-2s, pretty much exclusively for Showdown. So I will have exposure to at least to one quarterback in those 4-2 stacks to help balance stuff out. But I don't know, man. I think I'm probably only going to have 20 and 25% exposure to each of these guys. I don't think either is really going to be necessary for the optimal. I think these running backs are going to come into play here.
All right, speaking of running backs, let's start on Denver's side here. Melvin Gordon, 8,800. Mike Boone, 6,200. Latavius Murray signed off the street. Man, this guy's gonna play for every team by the time he's 40 years old. This is the ultimate, hey, we're screwed at running back. Call Latavius Murray in. So what do we do here, man? Melvin Gordon, to me, seems like a safer option, but we saw him with his fumble history. He got pulled, basically benched last week after that fumble. Mike Boone got most of the snaps. I think there's a little bit of a reset. I think Melvin Gordon gets maybe a 60, 40, whatever split here between Boone and Murray. But what do we do here, man? Boone is not that much cheaper than Melvin Gordon. Do we want to risk it with him?
Well, before I get into that, man, why don't you guys go ahead and give us a like and subscribe? We're trying to get to 1,000 subs by Thanksgiving. So thanks, guys. All right. So look, man, Melvin Gordon, he's going to be stepping into that RB1 role. But he fumbled last week, and I think the coaching staff is looking to get away from his touches. I was expecting that to be kind of Javonte Williams, taking over the reins 90% of the time or whatever.
Yeah.
Passing the baton fully back to him. But I don't know, man. I think you can get a little bit of exposure to him. I think if anything, you want a couple lineups with captain. But other than that, I'm not going to have much exposure to him. The guy I'm actually interested in here is Mike Boone, man. He's going to get involved in some of the third down back situations, on the goal line situations, and I just don't know if they have the same faith in Melvin Gordon that they used to. I think Mike Boone is going to get slept on a little bit because everybody's going to obviously be playing Naheem Hines. So I think you can probably get him a discount ownership, and he's probably going to be one of the top 5 odds to score a touchdown once odds finish updating for tomorrow.
Let's look at this tweet here. So the offensive coordinator for the Broncos with Melvin, he's going to carry the load. Obviously, we'll have a mix of Mike Boone. And after that, we've got to figure out who could spell and who fits best in that position. But we trust Melvin going forward here. Now, that was 20 hours ago. This is probably before or right as we got the Latavius Murray news, I believe. So the key here is you can't read too much into these tweets. I mean, if it was up to that, Tevin Coleman would have got 40% of the snaps the other night. But what are your thoughts on this? Like, do you have any faith in? By the way, this guy Mike Kliss is a Broncos beat writer with like over 100,000 Twitter followers, so there is some weight to it. But I don't know as we get closer if things have changed or if you really trust it.
Yeah, man. I don't know. I'm leaning a little bit towards Mike Boone just because of a gut feeling. But Melvin Gordon was a stud in college, and he had some great games with the Chargers. I think he can carry the load, and this could be his opportunity to go get a real contract. This will probably be his last season with the Broncos. So if he can step up and be the workhorse back for the rest of the season, he might get paid. So there is a bit of a narrative here, and I think you're just safest throwing him into captain, playing some Mike Boone. Latavius Murray at 5,200, he's not going to get any any real run to pay off that price, I don't think.
Yeah, I mean, even if Latavius Murray does get you a touchdown, 5,200, depending on what the score is, that might not be enough at 5,200. Yeah. There's some other guys that I want a lot more than him. And by the way, remember, Melvin Gordon was the optimal captain in that San Francisco, that terrible game we saw, what was it, a week ago or something? And that was with Javonte, splitting snaps. So just think about that. It's a similar total here, probably a similarly bad game. Melvin Gordon at captain is a great option, but it's a little bit risky if you ask me. But I'm going to have some exposure. All right, let's go to Indy here. This is where things are going to get interesting. All right, so Naheem Hines at 6,800. Philip Lindsay has been brought up from the practice squad. He was on the team last year. They released him. There's, it's been some back and forth, but now he is brought up, and he's only $400, dude. There's some optimizers, there's some projections that are projecting him quite high. And there's some people who think that there's a chance that he could be the number one guy with Naheem Hines just getting maybe a couple extra snaps and getting all those third down opportunities that he had in the past. We have a guy like Deion Jackson at 1,600. So what do we do here? Naheem Hines is almost a home run if you look at it on paper, because on paper he takes over and he gets some of those third down opportunities, or maybe Philip Lindsay now does. But we've seen these running back situations. They're not reliable. We don't really know who's going to get most of the snaps here. So where are you thinking this is going to go, and what are you comfortable doing?
Look, man, I love Naheem Hines. I'm going to have a whole bunch of exposure to him. I don't think he's priced correctly, just given what should be an increased output because of Jonathan Taylor being hurt. And I think there's a lot of recency bias in how, kind of shitty the Colts have performed over the past few weeks. But the dude's getting run. He's getting targets, and he's going to get the workhorse volume this week. So, I think I don't lock players anymore, really, but he's damn near as a lock as I'm going to get, right?
Yeah.
Now, I love Philip Lindsay, too. Like, welcome to the show where we tell you to play $400 dudes. Like,
yeah.
I don't know what else to say here. I've played Justin Watson, a fifth string wide receiver, because, Pat Mahomes could throw him the ball once. Philip Lindsay could see the ball for 50% of the snaps. I mean, he's a year and a half removed from being the number one back in Denver, right? Like, I mean,
narrative, revenge game.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, at $400, dude, what are you risking? I mean, you're paying 7,200 to get the entire backfield between Hines and Lindsey.
Yeah.
You can play whatever captain you want. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I mean,
So
those 20 rushes have to go somewhere. Like, they're not going to change their entire offense. Those Jonathan
yeah,
Taylor
and
rushes got to go somewhere. This isn't
you
like
want
we're
to throw.
This is not like we're
I
dealing
mean,
with the Chiefs or something here where there's not a lot of volume in that backfield. This team relies on their running backs.
right, right. They're gonna run play action. They need to be able to run on, rely on their running backs. And look, man, they're not gonna throw it all day. Like if Matt Ryan has 45 attempts in this game, like something went horribly wrong.
So here's a quote here from Frank Reich is Lindsey would definitely be a strong consideration. Glad he's on the roster. I feel very confident in him. Former Pro Bowl player, 1,000-yard seasons. Really glad he's here. I don't know what the hell any of that means, but it's worth popping up there. To me, a guy like Philip Lindsay is still like maybe slightly past his prime, but he's not one of these washed up running backs. He just needs to find a good situation, and this could be it. This could be it filling in for Jonathan Taylor here. I would probably lean more towards being cautious with Lindsey, but $400, you don't need a lot out of him. If he gets you 4 or 5 receptions, if he gets you 25 yards rushing, that might be enough to be in the optimal with a 42 total where there's not a lot of points to go around. For me, Naheem Hines is an incredible captain option. The volume, in theory, should go to him in the preseason, best ball, all that fun stuff. We knew about Naheem Hines being a solid option. He just has not done well this year. But I think in this particular case, they're going to have to rely on one of these running backs. And to me, the safest bet is Naheem Hines. All right, so wide receiver here. Let's go to Indy. Let's talk about this. So Michael Pittman, 10.6K. And then you got a bunch of other dudes here. Paris Campbell, 3,600. Alec Pierce, 5,400. Ashton Dulin, 4,600. And Michael Strachan, 200. So Michael Pittman's expensive. And he's going up against a tough defense when it comes to guarding him, man. So what are your thoughts on Pittman here? Does some of that volume shift to a guy like Pittman who's already seen a ton of targets this year?
Yeah, I think it can. I think the situation we need to be really wary of is Michael Pittman versus Pat Surtain. Pat Surtain, another one of those boys from Alabama. He is the best cornerback in the NFL right now, and it really isn't close. And I know people are probably going to talk shit about that, saying I'm wrong, but it's the numbers are there. He's going to shadow MPJ for about 65% of the game, maybe more. But there is going to be some other zone defense run and some opportunities for MPJ to break free. Look, at the end of the day, there's a good chance MPJ could have 9 targets and 8 receptions, 72 yards, and no touchdowns in a game where there's a total of 24 points scored. So if that's the case, you're going to need those 15.2 fantasy points from him because there's so much flexibility at salary today. So that's really what I'm looking at. I'm not necessarily as enthused in the matchup as I should be, but if he gets a couple plays off of Pat Surtain, he has the ability to take it to the house. So I think the upside's there. I think you need to have some exposure to him, but I'm not going to be heavily targeting him just because of that matchup, man. That does scare me.
Look at these targets, though. 13, 9, 6.
Yes.
He's the only Colts wide receiver to score a touchdown this year. It's clearly going to him. And some of these other guys like Paris Campbell and Alec Pierce are definitely interesting to me. If you look at the breakdowns here when it comes to snap rates for these guys, Michael Pittman's going to be on the field most of the time. He's 94%. He's played all 3 games. Paris Campbell is up there. You got Alec Pierce at 47%, Dulin only at 36% of the snaps. I don't know, man. Like, these wide receivers to me are a risk, but under Michael Pittman, I think you got to just sprinkle them in. But I'm not like solo playing any of these guys as one-offs without Matt Ryan or anything like that. There's so much other value here. And the chances that these guys somehow just pull it together and have an incredible ceiling type week are pretty low. So I just don't really think there's a need to jam in a bunch of Paris Campbell or Alec Pierce or Ashton Dulin, right?
Yeah, I agree with you. There's one thing, I do want to point out. The Denver defense has been incredibly inconsistent this year. Like, they looked okay in that San Francisco game. But if you kind of just look at the most recent performance, they've been getting up a lot of fantasy points to, running backs and wide receivers. So Like a guy that I might be a little interested here is a guy like Ashton Doolin. Um, yeah, hey guys, go ahead and like. Uh, oh shit, I fucked that up. You can cut me out of
No,
there.
no,
Yeah, my bad,
no.
man.
The whole thing froze, so it's all good. It's okay. The whole thing froze, so nobody even knew what happened. So go ahead and keep talking.
All right. No, look, Ashton Dolan, he's only on the field for 36% of the snaps, but he has 11% of the team's total targets, man. So to me, that means he's going to get an opportunity up the field. And in a game like this, if he ends up with a 50-yard touchdown, that's something that I may want to have a little bit of exposure to. Other than that, I'm not going to have any of these guys. I'm going to have Michael Pittman Jr.
Yeah, I think that's important. I mean, maybe there's an opportunity for one of these guys to score a touchdown, but there's just so much other value on this team, in this game in general. I'd rather just kind of avoid those guys and stay with the field. So let's go to Denver. Cortland Sutton at 9,400. This guy's a target machine. He gets open. He's open a lot. Cortland Sutton to me is one of my favorite plays on the slate. And at 9,400, man, I think he's underpriced. I think he's a better option than Michael Porter. Michael Pittman Jr. And you have a guy like Jerry Jeudy at 7,800 who has that high upside. Great option for captain for both of these guys. And a guy like Kendall Hinton, backup quarterback extraordinaire over here, at 1K. You're talking about a guy who is getting, the third most snaps on this for these wide receivers. He's at $1,000. He didn't have he had a decent week last week. I mean, I know that 6 fantasy points might not get it done for you, but at $1,000, you might still be able to cash with a guy like this at $1,000 with 3 targets last week. So talk to me about these, top options here, and are you interested in any of these one-off guys?
I love Sutton. I love Sutton at captain. I love Judy. Love Judy at captain, especially. I think Sutton is a guy you can play at flex and captain, but Judy is just such a high upside player. If he has one of his, what did he have? It was against
He had a
Las
15-point
Vegas
game last week, and then
Seattle.
week 1, Seattle, he had a 20. He had that long touchdown, I believe.
Yeah. Yeah, and I mean, if he gets into stride with Russell Wilson, I mean, he really should be kind of a better version of Tyler Lockett, to be completely honest with you. So,
Yeah.
I love him for the upside. I think you throw him in more captain lineups. Sutton's probably going to be a piece of my core. I'm going to have a pretty heavy amount of exposure to him.
Mm-hmm.
He could end up with 10 receptions, 80 yards, no touchdowns. And then he could also add touchdowns to that. Outside of that, I don't think I'm interested in any of these other guys. Hinton is interesting and maybe a 150 max, like deep shot GPP. But I mean, look, man, I'd rather just play whatever the hell Philip Lindsay's ownership is.
Yeah.
And, go somewhere else.
I'm predicting a Kendall Hinton, direct snap, draw touchdown in this game. I don't know. That's just me. I don't know. Maybe I'm just making shit up. Look at Cortland Sutton's targets this year. 7, 11, 10, 7. His minimum receptions has been 4. He's only got 1 touchdown this year, but he's a monster, man. I don't think he's getting enough credit. And if Russell Wilson can just get to half of the guy he was like 5-6 years ago, or even like 3 years ago, Cortland Sutton should be the optimal captain in this game. And I think you're going to need him in the flex. Jerry Jeudy has a high upside. I'm going to have more captain than I will in the flex with him. This is a similar to the Seahawks that we've done many shows with Russell Wilson before. You got those top 2 guys; they're different. They have different qualities, and I think this represents it kind of similarly. All right, so tight ends here. So Saubert had a touchdown, I think, a few weeks ago or whatever. He's $1,200. Alberto, 2,800. He's basically been eliminated from this offense. I don't know if it's injuries. I don't know if he's just not working out. I don't know what it is. He had 1 snap last week, I think. Andrew Beck, we saw in that first game, that season opener, I think it was, or was it the season opener? No, it was that Seattle game, the very first week. We saw Andrew Beck come out and get a bunch of random touches. Eric Tomlinson also is an option. I think one of these guys has a chance to score a touchdown in this game. Alberto at 2,800, though, I'm just not feeling it, man. He feels like he's like the third string tight end at this point.
Yeah, man. look, I'm gonna have to play a lineup or two with him just because like I'm too committed at this point. I can't miss the game that he has his touchdown. But I'm with you. He's been phased out of the offense, and just the snap percentage is just so spread out on this team at the tight end position that I mean, Albert O might just be a complete blocking tight end at this point. You know, he might be
Yeah.
their other left tackle. So, look, man, I don't. Again, this is just a weird spot for me. I think you can get a little bit of exposure to Eric Saubert, maybe if you want. But again, I just would rather play more Philip Lindsay.
Yeah, Saubert had that touchdown game 2. And you got a guy like Andrew Beck getting touches in week 1, 52 yards. And then Tomlinson is one of these random long-haired dudes that'll come in for 3 plays and score a touchdown. You know, it's just like there's a lot of different options here. I say you should get some exposure to all these cheaper guys. Alberto, on the other hand, I don't know. I just don't know where to go with him. Use your gut on that. My gut is that he's being phased out of the offense, and you might not see as much of him. So let's go to the other side here. Mo Alley Cox, I feel like, never gets any respect. He's always under 5K. He's always one of these dudes that gets low ownership. I think he's projected for under 10% ownership. And yet you're talking about a guy who had 2 touchdowns last week. Why isn't this guy higher owned? Is it because he's so inconsistent? I mean, you look at his past, there's a lot of red and there's some high green there. So any interest in Mo Alley Cox? And, you know, this is a sneaky captain Mo Alley Cox spot.
Yeah, absolutely, man. I love the tight end position, just probably a little bit more than I should in gambling. But yeah, he had a great Sunday. I think his ownership might inflate a little bit just because people saw that and like, hey, maybe he can do something. But again, the removal of Jonathan Taylor is going to open up some opportunities for someone somewhere, right? It may not be direct correlation to, Naheem Hines, but maybe everybody else gets 2 more targets and that turns into another touchdown for Mo Alley. So, yeah, man, I'll have a little bit of exposure to him. I think you're going to have to be willing to leave some salary on the table to play some of these guys, though.
Yeah, the interesting thing that I'm looking at here is with Mo Alley Cox versus Kyle Granson, you're talking about 60% to 50% of the snaps. You're talking about a guy in Kyle Granson who has 15 targets this year. That's more than Mo Alley Cox's 14 targets. So
Yep.
I think you just got to pay attention to these tight ends. You know, we always talk about in Showdown, these random tight ends will score a touchdown or have a couple big catches, and at low pricing, that just might be all you need. You might just need 6 or 7 points or 8 points out of these guys. So don't sleep on Granson because I think he's going to be lower owned than Cox. But I do think that both of them have a good opportunity to score. All right, so kickers and defense here. Brandon McManus, 4K. Chase McLaughlin, 3,800. McManus is a solid kicker. He's pretty reliable. Chase McLaughlin kind of has bounced around. They cut Rodrigo Blankenship this year, so they're dealing with some issues at kicker. In a low total like this, we've seen it recently a lot where these kickers make the optimal. I'm not playing kickers at captain. I'm not playing defense at captain. Yeah, they may end up the optimal captain, but more often than not, they're not going to end up in the captain spot. So talk to me here, man. We got to get some exposure to these kickers and defenses, right?
All right, don't fight me right now, but like if you want to get like kind of weird, I think Brandon McManus is an okay captain play. It's very possible they stall out every single drive because their offense is just that bad. And they're in Denver. So he could probably kick it from 75 yards out.
Yeah, true.
So, that matters in something like this. If you think it's going to be a short total, that's the way to go. Other than that, man, get some exposure. I don't think you need to have both kickers, but I think probably you're going to end up with one in the optimal tonight.
To me, a guy like Chase McLaughlin is interesting. If you're doing any 4-2 Denver stacks, maybe Naheem Hines or MPJ and Chase McLaughlin in that 2 spot for Indy, because with a guy, without Jonathan Taylor, they might stall out in the red zone quite a bit. They don't have a solid tight end. I know we got Mo Alley Cox, but they don't have one of these Gronkowski type tight ends that can catch a ball one-on-one. Now you do have MPJ, which is interesting. I'm not confident in if they can even get into the red zone, if they're going to be able to score touchdowns. So you might get like 3 or 4 Chase McLaughlin, like 40-yard field goals. And that could right there just already break the slate. So I hate kickers, but in this case, you got to pay attention to them. Broncos defense 4,200, Colts defense 3,400. Any interest in Broncos defense at 4,200 going up against a team that with not a lot of weapons?
Yeah, I actually do. I don't mind the Broncos defense here. Again, I really like the way that Pat Surtain's been playing. The question marks that the Colts offense has. Like I think that this could be an opportunity to grab a couple sacks, and maybe a pick six or something along those lines. I'm not going to be heavily exposed because again, these are two sloppy teams. Like these aren't good teams playing each other, and that's why we're expecting low scoring. We're expecting low scoring because both teams suck, and sometimes shitty teams end up in scores like what was it, 45-48 when you had the Seahawks and the Lions.
Yeah.
I know it's not the same thing here, but sloppy play could result in defensive touchdowns and a lot more offensive touchdowns than we were expecting. So just keep that stuff in mind.
That is one thing to talk about here is some of these crappy games for these island games, they can usually end up being kind of entertaining sometimes just because of how sloppy the teams are and how undisciplined they are. And some of these quarterbacks can make mistakes. And the Broncos defense is not terrible. I mean, I guess you could consider them not good, but they have opportunity for. I mean, look, you see that this team has already scored 16 and 17 fantasy points this year. If you get a defense with 17 fantasy points in this game, they're going to be in the optimal. I mean, it's just going to happen. So you gotta expose yourself properly to these Broncos defenses. I don't know if I'm interested in the Colts, but I mean maybe I'll get a little bit. All right, so let's talk about our captain choice here. This is our Crown Their Ass segment for DraftKings, our favorite captain.
Now, if you want to crown them, then crown their ass.
Crowning their ass. Ellie, you're going with Hines. I love that. I'm going to go a little bit safer with a guy like Sutton. I think in this situation, with all the value we have at least 3 or 4 players that I'm confident that can at least pay off their low prices here. And with high upside, I think in my position, I'm going to go with more of these stud captains who we know have a lot of volume, the MPJs of the world, the Suttons, the Melvin Gordons, and I will have a decent amount of Hines as well. So talk to me about Hines here. What are your worries and what is the upside for Hines?
Yeah, I mean, my biggest worry is that the Colts suck and they're not going to be able to do anything regardless. And then the second biggest worry is Philip Lindsay could see an increased load.
Yeah.
It's not like he's just been randomly added to the team. He was a part of the practice squad this season, and I think he was on the roster during training camp too. So, like he's got some practice with the team, and he may need to get some run. So that does scare me a bit, but. Hines is priced nice, man. He's going to get involved in the passing game. I think he's going to help spread the field out a little bit more for Matt Ryan, and take some stress off of MPJ and Pat Surtain. So I love him. I think he's going to end up with 5, 6, 7 receptions, and he could have a screen receiving touchdown and a rushing touchdown.
Yeah, I said Philip Lindsay was on the team last year. That was a mistake, but I'm. He was on the team. He was signed in the offseason, I believe, but that was so long ago, it seemed like he played last year. All right, so let's go to our fade.
We couldn't do diddly poo.
So, Ellie, you're just not really interested in committing to anything. Hey, I get it. I mean, we both faded CEH 2 slates ago, and he had 2 touchdowns. I understand. For me, like I said, for the captain options, I'm gonna avoid. I typically like to get some exposure to some of these like dart throws at captain with lower prices and lower ownership. In this situation, there's so many opportunities to get unique in the flex that I'm not gonna risk it as much in the captain spot. I'm gonna go with our solid players at the captain, and I might even have a little bit of quarterback exposure this week more than I typically would, simply because there's just so many cheap options that I don't got to worry about paying down at captain. All right, so let's go to our lineup build here. We're going to start building some lineups together. Let me switch over. All right, so this is the Opto. If you click Optimize as of right now, Russell Wilson at captain, Philip Lindsay, Naheem Hines, Jerry Jeudy, Matt Ryan, and Cortland Sutton. This is a solid lineup. It's not bad. I'm going to save it, but I have a feeling this is going to be a pretty popular lineup, considering all the news with Hines and Lindsey, and you got 3 other studs. And I also don't know too much about running two quarterbacks tonight. I might want to play with some other builds. So who do you want to build with first here?
Let's start with MPJ.
All right, so he is the most expensive player on the slate, which is kind of interesting. But I don't think we're going to have a huge problem building with him at captain. Do you want to pair him with Matt Ryan, or do you want to go like a 2-4? What do you think? I don't think you have to put Matt Ryan in the flex with a guy like Michael Pittman.
I say we go Russell Wilson and then Naheem Hines, and then see and do the 2-4. See what we can get back from
all right,
Seattle,
well,
or not Seattle.
Let's get our stack in here. So Russell Wilson, Cortland Sutton, most likely, right? Do you want to throw a guy like Jerry Jeudy in here too and see what happens?
Yeah. Let's put
Melvin Gordon?
let's put in Melvin Gordon, bro.
Yeah, I like that. He can get involved in the pass game. Just hold on to the damn ball, Melvin Gordon. I mean, that is a huge risk for this game. If Melvin Gordon fumbles in the first quarter, he's not getting back in the game. That is a huge risk. All right, let's go Naheem Hines here. Now, we can't do that. All right, so instead of Gordon, do you want to go Hines, or do you want to go to Philip Lindsay in this particular lineup?
Well, let's can we do Mike Boone instead?
Yeah.
Mike Boone and Naheem Hines. Will that give us enough?
Yes, it will. 1,300. So that gives you. You're in the.
I mean, this is where I would play Kendall Hinton.
Yeah, so you're in the Saubert, Hinton, Philip Lindsay. So you got Saubert. I mean, you rotate them out. Get 3 or 4 lineups with this core. Rotate that last spot out. I kind of like it. Let me save this. So you got Saubert. You got Hinton. Sorry, I know you guys can't see it here. I have to scroll down. Hinton with the glasses on in his profile pic, and Philip Lindsay. All right, so let's change this up. So instead of Mike Boone, let's go Melvin Gordon. Let's put in Philip Lindsay. That leaves us with 5,100. So we want to get one more Broncos guy, right? Now you could, in this area, you're looking at more. We just missed out on Latavius Murray, but you're looking at Mo Alley Cox, Ashton Doolin. But you could go down to KJ Hamler, or you could go with the Broncos defense in a situation like this. That's pretty nice, right?
Even Brandon McManus.
You can do that. Or if you wanted to do a 3-3, you could throw in Chase McLaughlin here. There's a lot of options. There's just so many options. And if you didn't want to put Sutton in, you could switch out for Jerry Jeudy, which gives you more options in that last spot. We have unlimited options here when it comes to the highest price captain. We still can do whatever we want. That's kind of rare. And I'm not talking about jamming in like a 4% owned Tevin Coleman. I feel like Philip Lindsay will see the field tonight. So do you want to go with like Sutton here at captain? See how we do that? Okay. So do you want to go both quarterbacks?
Let's go Sutton, both quarterbacks, and then I think we either need Hines or MPJ.
Let's go MPJ.
Hines or MPJ. Yeah, that works. Man.
Well, let's just try it. Let's just see.
Let's see where we're at.
So that leaves us with 5,300 for 2 spots. Now, what do we got here? We got a 2-2 going on here. Do you want to stick with your 4-2? Do you want to get 2 Denver or 2 Indy?
Let's go 2 Denver, and then I think we do another build where we do 2 Indy instead.
All right, so for Denver, we're gonna have to punt at least once here if we're doing 2 Denver. So you got to go with Saubert, or you got to go with Hinton, which I actually don't mind throwing Hinton in here. 4,300. That should give you all the kickers and all the defense, which it does.
Yep.
It gives you Broncos defense. It gives you Brandon McManus. And if you wanted to go to the other side, you can get Chase McLaughlin too. That's pretty nice. Any adjustments to this with Sutton? Do you want to go? Do you want to pull Matt Ryan and go with the running attack and maybe MPJ?
Pull out Matt Ryan, throw in Hines.
All
You know
right.
what? Throw in Hines, throw in Lindsey.
Okay. You want to do a 2-4 here?
I actually wouldn't hate a 3-3 here. You can throw in Mike Boone.
Mike Boone, baby. Sutton, Wilson, Hines, Pittman, Phillip Lindsay, and Mike Boone. A lot of the running game. Still have the high upside of Sutton catching a few touchdowns or maybe 10 balls or something. All right, who do you want to build with next? Let's do one more.
Let's run Naheem Hines.
All right. Naheem Hines. Let's just hit optimize and see what happens. Lindsey, Judy, Pittman, Sutton, Wilson. There's tons of options here, man. Just tons of options.
That lineup's probably going to be pretty chalky, man.
Yeah, it probably will. So let's find a way to get different here.
Let's go ahead and start with Phillip Lindsay, and then let's run it back before Denver.
Okay, Hines and Lindsey, love it. Let's get Wilson.
Russ, let's go. Melvin.
Melvin Gordon. Yes, we got it. We can't forget about Melvin.
And then Sutton.
Sutton. I mean, we just got ton. We can get whoever we want. Look, you could do Matt Ryan here, which would probably be the lineup that most people would have. So instead of doing Matt Ryan, and you just go down to Jerry Jeudy. Wait.
Yeah, you can just do whatever you want here.
Yeah, go to Jerry Jeudy here. You're saving 3,000, but I don't think that is bad. I really don't. With so much value, most of those optimizers are gonna try to jam in a guy that's higher up and get that salary close to the top. If you just go down one notch to Jeudy, not a lot of people are gonna have this lineup. All right.
Well, here and then
go ahead.
You can even just go. You can go from Lindsey directly up to Kyle Granson or literally any of these tight ends. So you can rotate 25 different pieces in that last spot.
Yeah, so that last spot would now be considered that $400 Phillip Lindsay spot, and you can just jam everybody in. So let's just do one more lineup. Let's actually put in like a super low-owned guy or a super cheap guy. Who are you comfortable going with on the low end here? Do you want to try a Phillip Lindsay just in case if he falls into the end zone twice?
Sure.
All right, let's just optimize and see what happens. You got everybody you could possibly want. Throw
in Brandon McManus.
In just instead of who?
In the captain spot after Phillip Lindsay.
Brandon McManus. Okay, cool. Let's do it. Wow, you're crazy. You're getting crazy here. McManus, optimize, Hines, Jeudy, Ryan, Sutton, and Wilson. Hey, there's a lot of options tonight. Is the moral of the story. You can do a lot of stuff. Try to get as many lineups as you can, or if you hate this slate altogether, just sit it out. But I think I'm gonna go with at least 100 plus lineups tonight. I might end up hand building these, depending. I don't know where you're going there. You're gonna optimize. You're gonna hand build some of these.
Yeah, I'll probably be hand building a lot of these, man. I'm gonna have a core and then have to rotate a lot. There's a lot of unknowns in this game.
All right, guys, if you can't watch this on YouTube, check out our podcast version of this. High quality audio on all of the biggest platforms you have, Spotify, iTunes, all those. Download that for us, and also join the Discord. We had quite a few people join last week, which was nice to see. Join that Discord. It's free. We're all just hanging out talking about our exposures. And when inactives come out, you're going to want to be in that Discord as we're talking about any other news that may or may not be there. Ellie, who is your low scoring guy that can score today, or low owned guy?
Yeah, I think it's Ashton Doolin, man. I think he can pull off a bullshit touchdown.
Wow. Okay. This isn't too crazy, but I do think that Latavius Murray will score a touchdown. But it doesn't mean he's a good play at 5,200. All right, guys, we will see you for Sunday Night Football. All right, see you guys later.